Welcome to Two Humans Talking, the podcast that talks about what it takes to be healthy and stay healthy in a modern, fast paced world. I'm your host, Tiffany Simms, and today we have Kat Donofrio, and she is going to be talking to us about puberty's spicy older sister, someone that we don't need to fear. We just need to learn how to get along with her so that we still stay the life of the party. And that spicy sister is menopause. So, Kat, before we jump in, can you share like who you are, where you live, what makes you uniquely you?
Okay, so I am a 60-year-old postmenopausal woman who lives in Columbus, Ohio, born and raised here. Um, and I've had a career in technology. But what really lights me up is health and wellness. Dealing with the challenges that I have over my life, I've had a need to do a lot of my own research. I've had a need to really advocate for myself and my health. And by doing that, I have learned so much. I have lived so much. And then I've gone on to, get more educated so that I can help other women hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that I have lived through myself. So it's something I'm very passionate about. Um, and it's what I am kind of focusing on in my second 50, as I like to call it, of life.
That is so cool. Okay, so if you're listening to us on your podcast on audio, I need you to hop over to YouTube and come peep Kat out. Absolutely would have never known you were 60. And
Well, thank
so,
you.
like, you are so welcome.
And I
Like,
swear, no
so,
filters, I promise.
right? Like, full of life, full of energy, vibrant. Like, there's so much joy that I can feel radiating from you from the moment that we hopped on. And I was like, actually, I need to pee. Do you have a minute to wait? Like, just a genuine, kind, energetic human is who I met when we
Oh,
turned on the phone. And so, like, I think that's important, especially as we talk about like redefining our relationship of what we think menopause is and what we think it's going to be like. And you're a perfect example of a woman who's menopausal, who's in her 60s and is just radiating life, which is the opposite of what we thought that part of our journey would be like.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So many women think it's the beginning of the end. And it's like, the average American, we're living well into our 80s, and we're seeing more and more people, women, especially women, living into their 90s, 100s. So if you think about it, for most of us, menopause or really perimenopause can start as early as 35, but generally starts late 40s, early 50s. If we think of that as the beginning of the end, what we're just waiting to die for another 30, 40 years? I mean, that's basically another half of our life. And that's why I talk about my second 50, because I am just in starting the second half of my life.
Yes, I
So
love
why would
that
I
a
think,
lot.
why would I dread it? Why would I, again, I see so many women and it frustrates me. And I think it's part of why I get so motivated to do what I do and to get on podcasts like this and communicate out that there is so much life left to live. And we have so much more wisdom now than we did in our 20s and 30s. Quite frankly, I didn't love my 20s and 30s. So I am looking forward to my 60s. My 50s were pretty good, looking for my 60s to be even better and just to grow from there.
It's so interesting to me, and I would love to hear your perspective, being a little bit older than I am, of why you think this is true. But I find it so interesting that for a good majority of my life, the narrative has been like 40s old, 50 is old, like your grandparents were ancient, but yet they were only 60, but yet they looked like 90-year-olds. And like there was like this storyline that aging meant you were dying and that
Right.
life was over and you were dead. And I just celebrated my 40th birthday back in August. And I think it's so cool to be 40.
It
Like, I
is.
never thought I would feel that way, but like, if you had asked me when I was 20, oh my God, 40s year olds, like that's old, that's middle age, that's like 1 foot in the bucket. I'm not ready
Oh,
for
I felt
that,
the same way.
right? But
Don't get
like,
me wrong, I haven't always felt this way about 40s, 50s, and 60s, but
but I think it's so freaking cool to be 40. Like,
yeah,
not everyone makes it this long. That is true. Not everyone has put themselves in a position to choose a different path, to learn from life, to set them up to enter their 40s with life and vibrancy. And there was someone who said I was delusional for being so excited about being 40. And I had a moment, excuse me, where I was like, really delusional. I don't care. Like, but seriously, you can think that, but like, what's the alternative? Being
right.
miserable and like dreading and hating my life and feeling like it was ending and like this just like that doesn't feel like living. And even if I only have 10 more years to go, like I wouldn't want to spend my last 10 in that like I want to
Right.
live. You know what I mean? So,
Me
from your
too.
perspective, why do you think we have had that narrative shoved down our throats for so long?
Well, it's really sad, and even more sad is it does seem to be an American thing because other countries revere their elders. Where, yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, it starts with a lot of the marketing and media that's out there that, looks at and talks about, trying to anti-age. I don't
Mm.
want to anti-age anything. I'm proud of my scars. You
I
know,
earned them.
I
They tell a
absolutely
story,
earned them.
right?
Yes, exactly. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of it comes from that, and the fact that, granted, when we look at some of the older generations, when people weren't living as long as we do now. I mean, there was a time when, 65, 66 or so was kind of life expectancy for some people. So, yeah, that did feel kind of like end of life, but that's not how it is anymore. Um, and, companies look at once you're in your 40s and 50s, like, oh, you're not as valuable, you're slowing down, you're looking, counting down your days to retirement instead of looking at us as, man, you've got a wealth of experience. You've seen it, you've done it. All the ideas that we're thinking of today in corporate America, it's not that they haven't been thought of before. It's not that we haven't tried those things before. It's cyclical, just like fashion. I mean, I'm loving that I'm seeing fashion from the 70s and 80s come back again because I love those looks, and they're coming right back. Same thing with everything. There are no new ideas. Um, but everybody thinks that, oh, younger, smarter, quicker is better. And it's always been like women's, especially for women, like, menopause and the different things that we experience through menopause. We're not allowed to talk about those things. Our moms or grandmothers, they didn't talk about them. They didn't share what they were going through. I can remember being in corporate America in my 40s and sitting in a meeting. I'm in the technology. So I'm, 80% men and 20% women. And I'm sitting in a conference room in a meeting with a bunch of men. I'm the only woman in the room. And all of a sudden I start to get a hot flash and I've got sweat starting to drip down my face. And I am like thoroughly embarrassed, which just makes it worse, like exacerbates the problems. And I'm sitting there trying to like do this, like to, hide that I'm like wiping the sweat off my face. Why? Why was I embarrassed that I was going through a natural, occurrence of that stage of my life? But I was.
Because we've been told that it's a sign of weakness. Being a
Exactly.
woman, like showing your emotions, showing the things that have the hormonal changes and changes that we experience throughout our monthly cycle, there's something to be embarrassed by and to hide because they hold you back rather than recognizing what they are and why they're happening so that we can like use them to our advantage
Hmm.
instead. And so it's almost like being a woman is, and the things that we go through is something that makes you weak,
Right.
which I find
Yeah,
so
I would agree with that. I mean,
fascinating.
in so many ways, we're already looked at as being weaker anyway. So, yeah, any little additional thing that can be picked on to show, well, see, you are weaker or you are less
You're
than, or
fragile, you're falling apart, you're coming to the end of life,
right.
like have no more
Yes.
value. We'll put you out to pasture.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I find really fascinating? Is that the phrase is grow a set of balls, man up, right? I have not met a man who's gotten kicked in the balls that has not dropped to his knees, lost his breath, wept, and like been immediately okay. Yet a woman, I'd rather like grow a vagina, right? Like
Yeah.
she takes a beating, she gets stretched, she goes through a lot every single month. We sit through meetings with heart attack style pain and
Hmm.
and yet we get through it logically as we can with drive and determination and we work magic. So it's like, why grow a pair of balls? Those seem weak and fragile to me, right?
Yes,
Like,
I would absolutely agree with you.
where did this phrase come from? Because there is nothing strong and like resilient about getting kicked in the balls.
Well,
They
it came
don't
from
take a
men.
punch.
I mean, look at it. Look at, go back 40, 50 years. Corporate America was all men, unless you were maybe a secretary, right? Advertising agencies were run by men. Um, so everything came from a male perspective. So, I mean, yeah, naturally, it's like they're the more virile, the stronger, they're there to protect us poor little weak women.
I really do look forward to like 20 years from now where the pendulum finds its way back to the middle because I think that we both men and women, have such strong characteristics and traits that are so valuable to the whole picture coming together. And I feel like we had the pendulum swing to like men ruling the world, and we're having that pendulum swing where women are trying to take back their power, and we're swinging so hard that we don't actually value and see the value in what men bring to the table. We almost like label them as
Totally.
like just toxic and entitled and all of this stuff. And so I
Yes.
actually really look forward to the pendulum finding the middle where we really do create harmony between our strengths to
Yes,
really
absolutely.
elevate the world.
Yeah, because it's like we're the yin and the yang, right? And we fit very well together. But if there's too much of one or too much of the other, that's
It's
not
not,
good.
it doesn't, yeah, like we need both. And I feel like we actually live in a society where it's not okay to be a man. Like,
I agree, and I will say my husband complains of that all the time. Being a middle-aged white man, it's like just by virtue of the fact that he is white, he is a man, and he is in his 50s, he's automatically bad.
yes, yes.
And it's like, I kind of think he's a pretty good guy myself.
Right. And I feel like the same is true of other racial backgrounds as well. A middle-aged black man is just has the same thing, except for his bad has a slightly different lens on
Yes.
it. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't matter if he's walking down Wall Street with his like $600 suit or not, that he's in a similar space.
Yeah.
And it just fascinates me because I believe that we need both. I think it's the
Yes.
toxic part that we need to get rid of, but fighting toxic with toxic has never been a win.
No, it's not. It things just blow up that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Same with menopause. Like fighting menopause with like all of that angst and energy didn't really set our moms and our grandmothers up for a successful transition
No.
into that next chapter.
No, it really didn't. Again, like going back to my example of when I was in a situation of having hot flashes and feeling embarrassed about it because of the environment I was in at the time, that just made my symptoms worse and last longer. Whereas if I was able to just take a step back, take a few deep breaths, and just allow myself to relax, it probably would have passed much more quickly.
I'll keep that
And
in
yeah,
mind.
yes,
That
do
one, I
keep
just
that in
like
mind.
stored that little nugget. I was like, take that and put that in the back of your brain for when it's applicable, kid. Like,
Yeah, yes, because there's so much that I wish I had known when I was going through menopause about simple things like, what I eat, how much sleep I was getting. Um, how poorly I was managing my stress back in those days. And things like exercise, all of those things can help with our menopause symptoms. But we don't know what we don't know. And most of our doctors, unfortunately, don't know.
That's true. And not,
They
yeah,
don't, yeah, they don't get
it hasn't been
education.
researched yet. Like they haven't done the work there yet.
They haven't done the work there yet. And even where the work has been done, the information isn't getting out to our frontline medical care teams.
Mm.
Like our our regular, general practitioners or primary care doctors, they get no education in menopause. They don't even get, if they're lucky, they may get one course in nutrition the whole time they're in medical school. Even an OBGYN doesn't get any training in menopause when they're going to school for their specialty, which you would think that would be part of their specialty. It's all about
But
birthing
it,
babies.
I was gonna say, but now that you say that, logically, I think that's past their scope of practice
Yeah,
because we're no longer reproductive organs. They're shut, like we're no longer in reproductive age. That's no longer their
exactly.
specialty.
Right.
So now you just opened a question, and maybe there isn't an answer. What is there like what is the field and the medical team that we are supposed to look for and go to as we're exiting our reproductive years? If you go to the
Well,
GYN and OB when you are entering puberty and
when you're
reproductive,
entering puberty and you're trying to get pregnant and you're
yeah.
going through pregnancy and having your children. Yeah. And for most OBGYNs, that's where that ends. Um, there really hasn't been a mainstream specialty for anything past that. Again, once upon a time, women, we didn't live much past our mid 60s. So there weren't that many years necessarily when we were really post menopause. So I hate to say it, I don't want to say they didn't care, but
It wasn't a
didn't seem
thing.
as critical, right? Um, but now there are more and more doctors who are taking it upon themselves to go out and become educated. And a lot of them are OBGYNs and some are
That
your,
are entering
regular
menopause
medical doctors or
themselves.
whatever. A lot of them are, right? And it's like, wait a minute, this shit ain't right. Sorry, didn't
Right?
mean to cuss on. But it's not, right? And so they're they're going out and doing their homework and they're finding where there are studies or they're pushing for more studies and they're on their own getting educated so that they can become specialists in the area of perimenopause and postmenopause. Because actually menopause itself is really lasts only one day. So you're pretty much you go into perimenopause, you have one day of menopause, and then you're postmenopausal the rest of your life.
Hold on, time out. I understand perimenopause. Talk to me about the one day. Like, is that just the day
So
that you cross the line?
technically the definition of menopause is when you have gone 365 days or essentially 12 months without a period. And at that point, you can pretty much, I won't say guarantee because there are exceptions, but in the 12th, 13th month, if you haven't had a period, you're not going to have any more. Your hormones have like gone through those whole crazy cycles of a roller coaster, and you're basically leveling out, and you're officially in
Postmenopausal.
postmenopause from then on out. So there are doctors that are getting educated, and they are becoming menopause specialists. And probably the best way to find someone, if there is someone in your area, is by going out to the Menopause Society, the American Menopause Society online, and they have a list of doctors who have gone and gotten additional education and who do specialize in support of women in perimenopause and beyond.
That's really cool. Something that I recently learned, like in the last 6 months, that broke my brain was that when you're menopausal, being menopausal or postmenopausal, it didn't mean you ran out of eggs. Like there's still some in there. And I thought that menopause was the moment you ran out of eggs. It turned out that was not true.
Yeah, yeah, it's not necessarily true. I mean, you don't have as many, so and all of the the changes that you go through in a normal 28-day or 35-day or whatever cycle, um, that all starts
Yeah,
to slow down and basically go
the
to nil.
hormonal
And
aspect
your
of it.
hormones, you stop producing as much of the estrogen and your progesterone and your testosterone, as well as other, but those are the three biggies, hormones. So because all of those things level off to often next to nothing, um, that's why you can no longer
Yeah. You're no
become pregnant.
longer building a house to then deconstruct it when no one moved in, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
That's
I
kind of a
thought
good
that
analogy. Yeah.
I like called my mom and I was like, Mom, did you know? And she was like, I don't know that I knew that, but I don't think I didn't know that. And I was like, my brain hurts. Like, I'm a woman with eggs. Why did I think that this meant that I ran out of them?
The carton's empty. Sorry.
Right, like I really thought that's why we stopped, but it's like, no, your body has recognized that we're at a certain age where we no longer build homes for people to move in.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
a very good
I
analogy. Yeah.
and I just so I wanted to share that with other listeners in case you didn't know. Like there'll still be some in there. They're just not ever gonna become anything.
Yeah,
Uh,
they can't be germinated. They can't. Yeah,
yeah. So crazy to me. What's
I
the
know.
one thing now that you've experienced it and now that you've really like dedicated yourself to learning as much as you can to help other people? What's the one true thing that you really wish you understood um, as you were entering menopause and being perimenopausal?
Um, I guess can I say two things?
Sure. I'm here to
Um,
listen because
one
I
of
want to
them,
know.
one of them is that it truly should not be something to embarrass by. It is an absolute natural part of life. Just like puberty was, as we, went from being a little girl to a young woman, there's that puberty transition. Um, that blossomed into hopefully something wonderful as we became young adults. Um, that the same thing is true of menopause. It is just another transition point in our life where, yes, there are ups and downs, there are changes physiologically, mentally, emotionally, but that's all part of blossoming into yet the next stage of our life, which again can be another absolutely wonderful stage because now we are armed with wisdom and knowledge and experience. And we know what it is we want and what we like and what we don't like and what we desire. And it's our chance to really live the life that we want to live, hopefully at this stage. Um, the other thing that I wish I had known is how much my daily lifestyle choices mattered in how I was affected by symptoms of menopause. Things like nutrition, what I ate or what I didn't eat, um,
Can you give an
whether I,
example? Can you give an example for the women listening of what that
yeah,
looked like for you?
sure. So things so when I went through it, quite frankly, that was a period of my life where um, alcohol was a regular part of our social life. Part of that time I was single, I was going out with friends. There would always be alcohol involved. We were involved in a lot of charity type things, or there'd be charity events, more alcohol. It was just a part of socializing. Well, alcohol can greatly impact your hot flashes, for example. So, gee, if I had known that I was having so many hot flashes, that, gee, if I had cut back and maybe had just a little bit less alcohol, maybe I wouldn't have had as many hot flashes. That would have been good information to know. Spicy foods, caffeine, those can all contribute to some of the symptoms that are
Mm.
associated with menopause. So, what you eat, getting enough sleep. And these are all things that are key to a
Things that
healthy
we were
lifestyle
supposed to be doing
generally.
before then anyway that we didn't figure
Exactly.
out.
Yes, exactly. And now you're realizing that, oh, that's also affecting how I feel through menopause. Um, things like exercise. Exercise can greatly diminish a lot of the symptoms of menopause as well. And just, continually be moving your body, getting that cardio going, getting the weightlifting. Weightlifting becomes really important, or strength exercise, because as we go through menopause, one of the hormones that we don't produce as much is our testosterone, which means it's harder to build muscle and it's harder to maintain muscle. And muscle is critical as we get older because it helps with our balance and our strength, and being able to get up and down from a chair and not falling as much, and all of those things. So if I had known those things, I might have kicked up my health and wellness a little bit more a few years earlier than I did. So
That's really good information to know. And as someone who spent a lot of years helping lifelong dieters heal their relationship with food and exercise, like what I hear is like all of those things that we're chasing now because people think that they want to lose weight. It's like actually you're trying to live. You
yeah.
want to live a life that you feel like you can't in the current conditions that you have in your current
Hmm.
circumstance. And so, like, what if the experimenting with your alcohol consumption? What if you experimented with your different types of food to see how your body actually responded to it? And you made decisions to feel good, not just because of the way you wanted to look. And if you can
Right.
do that now, it becomes a whole lot easier as you're transitioning, that it just becomes second nature and you're so used to thinking about myself being, in the beginning of my 40s. It'll be so much easier to do those fine tunes as they come along because I've
Mhm.
already been practicing how to
Yeah, you've already
listen and make
established a fairly
adjustments.
healthy base, right? And you
Yeah.
just build on that.
Yeah. And so, like, what I hear in that conversation is keep that up, keep paying attention.
Yes.
Don't let people, when you say something's not right, be like, you're crazy, you're being a hypochondriac. Like, be the scientist of my life, just like I am now, and
Hmm.
continue fine tuning, and it's gonna be okay.
It will be. Absolutely. Yes. Just being mindful, you know, like
What
you
a
said, how does your body feel when you do things?
Yeah. It's the biggest thing. Like I used to work out to as a punishment for what I ate or because I didn't like the way I looked. And now
Yeah.
it's like, how can I move my body in a way that's going to make me feel alive and strong and springy? Because I don't
Yeah.
want to feel heavy, you know?
Yep.
Um, and as you were sharing, like the thing that I just kept thinking was, man, how lucky, oh, I can feel my emotions coming up because I truly feel it. How cool is it that I was gifted the opportunity to be 40 in this day and age when there's so many people a few steps ahead of me rewriting the
Right.
story and the narrative and doing the work that I get to benefit from so that I have a different experience. Like that to me is such a gift and so cool.
It is such a gift. And now you also have the responsibility to carry that torch on.
Yeah. And like I get to watch, I get to see, I'm very grateful. I was thinking about this too. Like I'm really grateful that I'm where I'm at because I've got the 10 years to really see the benefits and risk of hormone replacement because there's some things in that like I think I see the benefits, but I have a lot of questions about what the long-term effects of doing things your body wasn't designed to do, like
Mhm.
overriding your body, are going to be. And so I just think, what a gift. And so thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for being born when you were born to be that many years ahead, helping pave the path for those of us coming behind you.
And that's you're welcome. And that's kind of how I look at my message now, is to share what I've experienced and what I've learned, and hopefully again you can take from me what I've learned, what you've experienced yourself, add to that, and share it with the next generation down,
What
because
a
that's what
silly,
that's what aging is all about. It's about getting older, getting wiser, and then being the wise elder to the next generation behind us.
yes, which is something you touched on this earlier that in the States we do not respect and appreciate. Like, you're stupid, you don't understand the way the world is. Like, times have changed. And it's like, actually, but what if, yes, times have changed and there are some things that people who've lived more life than I have truly do not understand. But what if
Sure.
I took the role? What if my generation and those behind me took the role of listening through the lessons
Hmm.
to understand how it applies? Because if I've learned anything, is that things make that my mom used to say that didn't make sense when I was 15 and I thought she was stupid. Like in this stage, it's like, oh, now that I've experienced these things and caught up, like that makes so
Right.
much sense as to why she felt that way. And
Exactly.
so it's like, what if we just took the role of listening for seeking understanding rather than
Mhm.
that defensive, you don't know me, like stop
Right.
pooping on my parade. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. No, I totally agree with you. And yes,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times now I look back and at things that my mom used to say, and now I think those things myself, and I'm like, oh my
You're
gosh,
like, God damn it.
she
I
was
can't
right.
tell I can't tell you how many times I've picked up the phone randomly and just called my mom and said I was sorry for like the stupidest things. And I'm like, I understand
Yeah,
now. She's like, I knew you would. And I'm just like,
right.
I'm really sorry. I understand the perspective now. You were right. Like, and I thought I owed that to you. And while I'm processing out loud, something else that I just processed was I need to be aware as I'm sharing my wisdom of how I deliver it. Because I think that's a big part of that resistance
Mm,
piece when I think about being younger and like you don't get it,
right.
resistance was the like the delivery because it was never really presented in a way where I could receive it. It was always that like talking down, you don't understand, you're just being a dumb kid, or you wait until, and it's like, but this is the oldest I've ever been. Like, can you give me a minute to like settle in before you tell me where it's going? Like,
Right.
and so like that realization of like how we share what we've learned in our experiences is just as important as being open to receiving those words of wisdom.
And that, yeah, that's very true. And that's a lesson I have to teach myself every day because for me, it's not, and it's not intentional that I'm ever trying to talk down to anybody or call anybody stupid. And I at least have never actually used that word, but I just feel so passionate about what I know to be true. And when I see someone who's doing something that I know is setting themselves up for failure, I just want to shake them and say, no, you don't realize what
What
you're
are
doing
you
to yourself.
doing? It
It's like
really
you're going to
is.
live to be 80, 85 years old, probably at least, if
I'm
you're
going to
listening
120.
to me today. Awesome. I'll be there with you. Well, yeah, I'll be there with you. But I want to say you're going to live at least that long. What you're doing now is probably going to mean that by the time you're 60, 65, you're not going to be very healthy. And you're going to have 25, 30 years of your life where you are living taking medication after medication. I mean, people over 60s and 70s these days, it's not unusual for them to be on 5 different medications for 5 different chronic, conditions. And, they wish they could do this or they wish they could do that. And it's like, if you just make some little, you mentioned this before, little tweaks here and there, it can make such a world of difference. And I just want to shake people and get that through to them.
So I coach high school field hockey. And in that role, I don't actually think it's my job to like create a winning team above all else. I really
Mhm.
believe that my role as a coach is to teach them how to work together, be a teammate, have their own personal goals while working towards a team goal, how to resolve conflict, like life things, for them to
Right.
become adults that I might want to work with one day rather than
Right.
assholes that I don't want anything to do with. Like we've all had that coworker, right? And you're just
Oh,
like,
yes.
can we just like emotionally evolve? Can we teach you how to human for a second? So I feel like it's my job to help them learn the things I wish I had known back then. And I
Yeah.
always have to lean back into like my high performance coaching stuff, which I didn't know would be so helpful. And instead of telling them what the answer is or telling
Yeah.
them how to fix it. It really is that like series of like questions and teeing up the thing for them to like come to the conclusion I just wanted to shake into them
Right.
on
Yes.
their own. And I found that it's not always easy and I don't always get it right, but I find like the moments where it is so magical. And then to watch them go on the field with their other teammates and do it in their own teenage way and like
Uh-huh.
share that, it's like, oh, those are the things I need to remember. Like,
Yes.
not the shaking moment, it's the like teaching them how to process for themselves to get to the answer we wanted them to get to.
Yes. Those are the moments that make what you do so valuable
Yeah.
and
And so
so
I think
worth
a
it.
lot of older people, if they could learn that skill, there would be a lot less frustration when they're just trying to be helpful and no one wants to listen. It's like, how can you help tee the conversation where they land exactly where you were taking them
Yeah,
without you actually having to like tell them the answer?
exactly. It's more guiding them
Yes.
to the answer. Yeah.
Guiding them to where you're trying to get them to land.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much. Like, I genuinely, if you couldn't tell, like, I love this conversation. I got so much out of it. As we're wrapping up, Kat, is there anything left on your heart or any final words that you want to leave with our bestie that's listening right now?
I would say it doesn't matter where you are today. If you can just look at each day and try to be 1% better, you're going to go so far and you're going to be in a much better place a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Um, and live your life the way you want to live it. We don't know how long we have on this planet. Studies say, oh yeah, we'll live to our 80s or 90s, but not everybody is promised that. I now have lived more years than my brother did on this planet. My brother passed at 56. That's well before the life expectancy, but so we don't know how long we'll have, but live every day like it's your last, but at the same time, have an eye towards the future and what you want your future life to look like, and just make every day count towards that.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Kat, how do people connect with you outside of the show?
So outside of the show, I am on socials quite a bit, particularly Facebook, Instagram. You can find me as Kat Donofrio on either of those. I do have a website, catdwellness.com. You can find ways to work with me if you're so inclined and want to book a discovery call. You can do so on my website. Um, and yeah, those are probably the easiest ways to find me.
As always, go be a human, go connect with another human in this world. Don't be afraid to learn from others. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And with that, this is Two Humans Talking, and I'll see you next time. Bye.